Jeffrey Robertson QC there. Let's head back home, and there's another tough poll out for the Gillard government today. Today's opinion poll in Fairfax newspapers comes as a $12 million advertising campaign to promote the carbon tax is rolled out across the country. For more, Andrew Green joins us now from Canberra. Andrew, not exactly the poll bounce the government had been hoping for.
No, certainly not, Michael. If anything, things are getting worse for the government despite its week of heavy campaigning across the country. Today's Nielsen poll, in fact, confirms the Federal Labor Party is now at the lowest position of any major political party in Australia's polling history. We see Labor now at 27% of the primary, or 26 rather, percent of the primary vote, and the Coalition at a commanding 51%. When we go to the two-party preferred vote, it's even more devastating for the Labor Party, and confirms in fact that the government would be wiped out if there was an election to be held now. The Labor Party now 39 to 61 against the Coalition, and for Julia Gillard, perhaps most disturbingly, she's now fallen behind on the preferred Prime Minister stakes in the two major opinion polls. In the Nielsen poll, she's now well behind Tony Abbott as the country's preferred leader. It's also disturbing for the government that the poll continues to find that a majority of Australians are against the carbon tax. Many want an election, and many believe that they will be worse off under the carbon tax despite the compensation. But in any case, Julia Gillard was putting on a brave face as she spoke to a Green group in Sydney today, saying her government was determined to push on.
Then the time to act has come, and act we will. I won't let this country surrender in the face of the challenge of climate change. Our nation will act to cut carbon pollution.
Julia Gillard in Sydney this morning, and Andrew, at the same time, her Communications Minister Stephen Conroy was deciding the best form of defence was offence.
Absolutely, and the government in part is blaming a lot of the coverage, particularly in some of the Murdoch tabloids, for its woes at the moment. It believes that the carbon tax debate is not being presented fairly by the tabloids, specifically the Daily Telegraph in Sydney. It has also privately hit out at some of the other coverage in some of the other broadsheets. But we know that the government is also seizing on some of the difficulties overseas for the Murdoch press, and Senator Stephen Conroy was certainly not holding back when he was on speaking to Radio National this morning.
The problem that you have when you run campaigns in newspapers is you're not prepared to give equal coverage to both sides of the argument. When you're campaigning, you're suspending normal journalistic practice, which is to be balanced and to give equal time to both sides. But the Daily Telegraph is interested in distorting the debate, is interested in demanding an election campaign purely intended to try and get rid of the government.
Stephen Conroy there. And finally, Andrew, what are the leaders up to today?
Well, Julia Gillard will continue to visit places in Sydney. She's visiting an energy-efficient home in Sydney. The opposition leader is on the Gold Coast, and interestingly, the federal executive of the Liberal Party is today meeting. It will be, among other things, discussing the review of the last federal election, in which it's made a number of recommendations. Peter Reith, the person who headed that review, says that the party really needs to get out on the front foot with policy, which is perhaps in contrast to what Tony Abbott has been doing, purely running against the carbon tax. Well, Peter Reith thinks it's now time to start rolling out some policies.
Andrew Green in Canberra, thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike.